We live. We're live. Who's with me? Who's with me? Is anybody coming? We ain't got no one right now. Right. I'm going to begin. There's one person watching. Make yourself known, whoever it is. So guys, today I'm going to go over the first session back in coaching, back going out and meeting people in London. It's very new for me, even I've been away. Hey, don't be stupid. Hi, what up? Make yourself known. Great, good guys. So I went out. Hi Teddy, what's up, man? Hi Zach. So I went out yesterday and the day before, Saturday and Sunday, and life is somewhat back to normal. You'll be glad to hear. I have received a number of questions on YouTube pertaining to the possibilities of going out and meeting people in London right now. So you guys, we're going to go over this, but please ask me questions in the chat section as well. Anything you want to know about London, about my experience, about the experience of my clients, and I'll be happy to address everything with you as we go. So yesterday we went for the regular trail. We had 4 hours on Saturday and 4 hours on Sunday. This is my social recharge course. And so I had two clients, very different experience levels, actually. One more experienced than the other, but they both made a really good go of it. We started off at Bond Street Station. So I guess to begin, we'll just go over some sort of logistics and general ideas about where's a good place to start, where's a good place to go if you do want to go out and meet people at this time. So we started at Bond Street Station. And as a lot of you will know, if you are from London, the stretch between Bond Street and Oxford Street is normally quite a lucrative place to go when it comes to foot traffic and the sheer volume of approaches you're going to be able to do and the number of attractive strangers that you're going to meet. So we started at Bond Street and we walked down to Oxford Circus a couple of times just to get used to the streets again, because I think the whole process starts in the streets for me. I think that is the fundamental skill that we should learn, because no matter where you're going to be in your life, whether it be in the office, in museums, in shops, in restaurants, cafes, you're always going to be on the streets. You're always going to be walking down the streets. And we have this sense as men that if we see someone in the street, that there's this sort of bubble around them, that's a no-go and you can't go and talk to someone in the street, because what if you're distracting them? What if you're interrupting them? But my experience has always been that the street is the place to learn. That's your punch bag. That's your training ground. That's the place where you're really going to build and sort of leverage your confidence and your ability to take a difficult decision when it's required of you, or where it's necessary, where you feel like you want to express yourself. If you can do that in the street, you're in pretty good stead to do it virtually anywhere else, because it's a very tough place to do it on the whole, unless you are very experienced or you having a period of momentum with it. So we went from Bond Street Station to Oxford Circus, then we walked back up to Hyde Park. Hyde Park was really busy as well. Obviously, on the weekends, it's going to be predominantly better on the weekends, but when people in England can't go to pub gardens and go to pubs and bars, they're moving outside. So they're moving into the green spaces. Hyde Park is the obvious one. There's parks all around London, and I imagine Richmond Park, Battersea Park, Hampstead Heath. I know London Fields is very good. So parks and spaces like that are excellent when the weather's nice. And so starting out in Hyde Park, there were many opportunities. And the great thing about Hyde Park is that it's a place where you're not going to be essentially burning anything to the ground. If you go up and meet someone in Hyde Park, it's very likely that they're not going to have been approached before there. They're not, there's not going to be hundreds of guys coming up to groups of women and mixed groups of people sitting in the parks. And so there's a level of sort of authenticity and confidence that you can go in knowing that no one else probably will have gone to speak to them, because the park is so large. You could probably do about 50 approaches in Hyde Park and never see the same person twice if you didn't intend to. So Hyde Park was absolutely great. What are my favorite spots? What is going on in London right now? Ireland is almost reopened. Yes, so the parks are great. I was in London Fields a couple of weeks ago and it was the same. London Fields is in Hackney in East London. So the demographic is slightly different. People are a little bit more free there. People are sort of shirtless and kicking a football around, and it feels more community than Hyde Park. Hyde Park is a little more isolated groups and spaced further apart, but it's a great place. So we spent time on the streets and in the park. In my experience of yesterday, people were as responsive, if not more responsive, than they usually would be. You have to remember that people haven't been socializing a lot. Women haven't been receiving the attention that they would normally receive from men, right? They're not going to bars and clubs. They're not being approached in the daytime. They've mostly been inside, right? And so this need for connection and attention, really, and sort of validation, though we don't want to rely on external validation, it is important to us to receive attention and affection from other people. And so in my experience, women have responded very, very well to cold approach. Both of the clients, we put a sort of 10-minute timer on it. So every 10 minutes, one of my guys would have to go up and approach. We did a couple of approaches together. We did them separately. I got the guys to record their interactions on their phone on a voice memo so they could come back and show it to me, and we could break down the conversation and find out what they could do better, maybe where they were going wrong. The main issues that you guys are going to have getting back into it after a hiatus like this, and what I saw in my clients is often really basic stuff, right? You've got to go back to basics. So you're having a conversation, and let's use an example. The guy says, "Oh, you've got an accent." One of my clients says, "Oh, you've got an accent. Where are you from?" She says, "I'm from France." And then, being a little rusty, it's like, "Oh, you're from France. Cool. Cool. That coffee looks good. I'm thinking of getting a coffee. Where's a good coffee place?" "Oh, Whole Foods." "Oh, okay. Well, what coffee did you get?" "I like a cappuccino." "What's that?" "It's a latte." "Oh, okay. Well, so what are you up to today?" It's this idea of every time a conversation topic comes up and you get an opportunity to build into a conversation, you just jump to the next topic, right? This is a kind of mistake that you're going to make when socializing. If you haven't been talking to a lot of people and meeting them before, you forget that you can dig into a topic. You forget that if she says she's from France, that gives you a great segue into talking about French culture, right? So you could say, right, well, right now in Paris, I imagine everyone's sitting outside in the park under the Eiffel Tower, stuffing their face with cheese, baguette, and cheap wine, right? You can turn that into an opportunity to maybe tease her about the culture or make a reference to what you know about France. Or maybe you have friends in France and you can talk about the situation like, "Oh, I hear France is like really opening up now. I bet you're jealous of your friends who live over there," right? There's many, many options that you've got here to dig into a topic like cultural differences and travel. And if you're not taking those opportunities, if you're flitting and jumping from topic thread to thread, rather than digging your claws into one and really getting to know her based on that, then that's a rookie mistake that's easy to adapt to. It's easy to just tell yourself, right? We have sometimes these, what I call sort of like golden switches, where essentially some stuff takes a long time to learn and a long time to adapt to and acclimatize to. Other things are instant. You just recognize it in the moment and then you can change that behavior. And so with something like focusing on the hooks, getting a hook in a conversation and digging deeper into that topic, this is something that you can just correct, autocorrect. All right, I was jumping from conversation to conversation. In the future, I'll dig into each conversation a little bit more. Remember, women are rusty as well. They haven't been communicating as well. They're not really judging you too much. you get a lot of hall passes in terms of, they're going to give you a lot of leeway because people just haven't been having conversations, right? People just haven't been speaking. So remember to dig into the conversations, and remember that this isn't just, you can't use the crutch of coronavirus to carry your conversations. It's a very, very obvious thing to think is that, right, well, this is obviously the topical thing that's happening right now. There's a virus going on. There's a political thing going on. There's these Black Lives Matter protests right now. And there's a number of kind of topical ideas that you could talk about. But just remember that when you dig into something like religion or politics with a stranger, particularly if you're trying to build attraction and chemistry and you like this person, it's very difficult for that conversation to go anywhere other than a serious, sincere, straight-faced conversation, right? It's difficult to laugh about these topics, generally speaking. And what you might find is you start using these conversation threads as a crutch, right? It's too easy to say, oh, so are you going to the protests today? Oh, so I guess you seem pretty bored of this virus as well, right? It's too easy. But if that's what you're talking about, then you're grounding your interlocutor, you're grounding the person that you're speaking to in this sort of everyday, banal, boring reality. Whereas if you remember the conversation topics that are interesting, travel, culture, experiences, dreams, ambitions, ideas, personal narratives, then you sort of lift the conversation onto another plane where just for a moment, you and the person you're speaking to can sort of crack out of this very banal daily routine of coronavirus protests, boring life experiences, and go to the more interesting topics. So don't sacrifice your intellectual capacity. Don't sacrifice it to coronavirus. Don't sacrifice it to the protests that are going on. Remember that you create your reality, the way that you're seeing the world, the things that you're focusing on, create the frame that you carry with you throughout the day. And if you're allowing that frame to be decided by news channels and what you're reading on Facebook and in the news, then your conversation is going to be dreary and sort of hurt. It's going to contain that element of the herd mentality as opposed to snapping them out, bringing them up to a more interesting level and keeping your conversation sort of unique, special, and slightly ethereal, slightly otherworldly, right? Not quite grounded in the everyday reality, but something a little bit higher. So that's the main conversation things. And then just, if you like the person, remember to be going for contact details. It's not always the most natural part of an interaction, right? When you feel like it's time to leave and you want to say, hey, so can I get your number? And it just feels like it feels a bit crass sometimes, doesn't it? It feels a little bit vulgar and a bit like boring to say that. There's no good way to say it, but just remember that anything that's difficult to do just takes a little bit of practice, right? It takes a little bit of routine, a little bit of repetition before it naturalizes itself. So the three main points: look for hooks in a conversation, dig deeper, don't just skim the surface and jump from topic to topic, because it displays a level of a lack of present-mindedness, right? If you can't focus on what she said and dig into it, shows that your thoughts are coming and going and flicking in and out. You're not really focused on her. You're just looking for the next thing to say to sort of salvage yourself from the situation. And it's really important to build a connection with anyone that you meet in order to build attraction. That doesn't have to be a deep connection. It doesn't have to be some, TV American rom-com deep connection. It can just be a surface connection. But the connection that you build has to go into some depth in the conversation. You've got to dig into it, right? Even if it's something surface level, you've got to dig into it. Even if it's just the place that she's from. She's from Italy. Do you know anyone from Italy? What do you know about the country? Would you like to go there? Does she prefer it here or there? Where is the best place in Italy? Where should you come and visit? What does she miss the most? Are her family there, right? All of these questions are going to tell you vital information, logistical information about her. So that's the first point, is dig into the conversation, get your claws into them. The third point is always be closing. And someone remind me what the second point was. I'm just on my second coffee of the day, so someone can give me a heads up and we'll cover point 2 again. So just for the moment, I'm going to go to Mr. Boombastic, very original name. What are your favorite spots right now? Well, it depends, man. I'm going to release some content about the best spots in London to go to, depending on the weather and depending on a number of different factors. But as I've said, if it's sunny outside, Hyde Park's an excellent place to go. Hyde Park's got a lot of groups of people, a lot of attractive women. London Fields is a place I've spent a lot of time as well, as I said, and it's got a slightly different demographic. Then if it's a little bit more overcast, you're unlikely to find so many people in the parks. So somewhere like London Bridge to Tower Bridge along the South Bank is a pretty good bet. Even King's Cross is a good place to go. It's sort of Granary Square area is very good. And I imagine that Chelsea's going to be pretty good right now as well, because it's a lot of locals living around there. So sort of Sloane Square to South Kensington, that area should be pretty good on the streets as well. I do want to make one suggestion, right? And this is kind of the first serious point that I want to address with regard to this industry and what we can do in the wake of all of the nonsense that appeared in August of last year, July, August of last year. So when that documentary came out, courtesy of one Mr. Miles Bonner, on a secret boot camp of street attraction, trying to exaggerate everything that they said and make them seem like criminals, when in fact they're just guys trying to, leave a mark on the world. When that was happening, the industry sort of shut down for a couple of weeks from what I saw. Guys were very scared to go out. But things went back to normal, right? We had a little dip and then everything went back to normal. This is another dip, right? During this coronavirus and during these times, there's going to be another dip, right? As people are stuck inside and people are needing to isolate, but we're coming out of it now, right? People are spending time outside. We're allowed to meet up with other people now. And I think it's really important for you guys and me and the people that I go out with and the people that you go out with to really think about how we want this industry to be represented now and how we want men to be represented in London, right? Because though I support, street attraction were my friends, they are my friends, and I support them, there are people going out and there are people getting it wrong. There's this sort of, I remember when I used to be in a community back in Nottingham, there was this sort of egoic idea that it was every lad trying to get more numbers than his mate or trying to sleep with more girls than his mate. And honestly, it can lead to some negative repercussions. Just the way that you start communicating with women, the shotgun approaches, saying the same things, saying like outrageous stuff. We don't want to force, we don't want to force the other side out. We don't want to force ourselves into a position of being in conflict with a community of women and having a few people's actions represent the whole of, socially confident men, right? Socially active men. So I think more than ever now is the time to just focus on each approach you do, every person you talk to. Make sure that it's as respectful as it can be. Make sure the way you're speaking and the way you're approaching and communicating is done in a way that recognizes the potential for them not to want the interaction. As I've said, in my experience, each response I got was highly positive. But, I do employ a level of social calibration and reading their body language in order to know what they're comfortable with and what I can get away with. And I think more than ever now, that's how we should reintroduce cold approach back into the world now. It's like, be respectful, genuinely look at that person, not as an opportunity for conquest, but as another individual who you find attractive, who you want to go and express yourself to. And if the two of you get on well, then something's going to happen. If you don't, then you won't. But I think this is just important as a caveat to talk about, because I feel like we've got a fresh start, right? And all of us have an opportunity to like make this time stand out as being the right approach, us getting it right. So I would advise at the moment less of the sort of shotgun approaching, just as many people as you can, and more the sort of really focusing on the other individual, focusing on what you like about them, focusing on reading their body language, right? Eye contact, expressing yourself genuinely and honestly. That doesn't mean you have to pander to them and you have to, make yourself weaker in any way. It just means be aware of the way they're reacting and really try and read them as much as you can. So that's the caveat that I just wanted to mention. I know almost all of you are going to understand that, and you're probably thinking, yeah, obviously, if I get it wrong, I'm not trying to get it wrong. I'm trying to get it right. So I understand that it's not always as easy as just getting a good reaction, and some people are going to give you a bad reaction no matter what. But I just want us to be mindful of how we're reintroducing this culture into the world during this time. So we've got a fresh start, so let's make it amazing. Let's make it good. Let's improve the relationship between men and women in London rather than degrade it, which is what seems to have happened over the last couple of years somewhat. Marco Rosso, hey Sam, do you do coaching full-time or do you have another job? No, it's full-time, man. It's full-time. I'm really focusing now on services, on products, books, and a load more content for you guys to try and stretch out the path ahead, not just the one-on-one coaching, but I'm releasing over the next couple of months a series of products and resources that I can direct you to for people who either can't afford or don't want to take one-on-one coaching. How to approach English women and Ireland. Dude, it's the same thing. Don't worry about the nationality too much when it comes to approaching. Just go in with a level head and good posture and eye contact and your full sensitiveness to the way that they're reacting. If you can, don't worry about the cultures or the race of the person you're approaching. When you're new, you're going to have a lot of embarrassing moments. You'll eventually run into some of these girls again or enter their social work groups. How do you deal with damage to your reputation? That's a very good question, Phoenix. It's a very good question. And I think the answer to that came up yesterday with one of my clients as well, is that you've got to be able to laugh at yourself, right? There's a quote by an old English parliamentarian or politician, I think it was British, but she said, you wouldn't worry so much about what people thought of you if you realized how little they did. And I think this is the important thing here. If you are thinking that you've made an absolute hash of things and you've turned someone off and they're going to laugh at you or it's going to be embarrassing, I guarantee you're projecting. In the case of a woman who you've met, she's either going to like you or she's going to forget you, right? Unless you've done something horrible. She's either going to remember you because she likes you and you had a great conversation, or she's going to forget you because if she doesn't like you, then she doesn't care, right? So when you think that it's going to be embarrassing in the workplace or it's going to be awkward, these are all your mental projections. You're tapping into your pre-modern era, your ancient biological hardware, and you are looking at it from the perspective of the worst case scenario, right? What's the worst thing that could possibly happen to me in this situation, which is socially outcasted? But that's never the reality. If you go in and you laugh about it, let's say you've approached someone and then you meet her another time, she's a friend of a friend or something like that. And when you see her, you just go up and you sort of smile and you say, I recognize I approached you 2 days ago and I did a terrible job of it. You deserved a lot better than that. I really did not do any justice to either of us. It won't happen again. I promise I'll do better, right? Laugh about it. It doesn't really matter what you say, but if you're not taking yourself seriously and you're sort of seeing the funny side of it, then she's going to see you as someone that's not worried about yourself. You're not trapped in your ego. You're not anxious about that stuff. So you've got to just get over that sense and address the situation, show her that you find it funny, that you have the ability to laugh at yourself, and it's not going to cause you the same distress. It's all a projection. It's a mental projection that there's a problem. She doesn't feel there's a problem. If she felt there, as I said, she's either going to like you or she's going to forget about you. There's no, remembering a bland or slightly weird conversation. It just doesn't happen. Preach. If you've been single for a very long time, is it a belief thing or is it situational? I've just started approaching again. I don't know, Andy. It depends, right? It depends. If you've got a negative belief system about yourself, then you're more likely to be single. But you also might be single because you just haven't been approaching, or you have been approaching and you haven't been lucky. You haven't met the right people. So there's a big element of luck to it. If you do enough approaches, then you will get enough results. You will get the results you need over time. The law of averages says that you will get what you want if you do enough of it. The fact that you're improving incrementally each time just makes that compound effect even stronger. You pick up momentum, it's easier to approach, and you're learning your social skills as you go. Right, who's next? How did you meet Tusk and your other closest friends? I met Tusk doing a boot camp together for another company. We were both freelancing, and we met and we went out for a lot of drinks, and it was history from there. Sam, what kind of workout do you do in the gym? I thought you were more calisthenics. Yeah, man. I mean, I haven't been in the gym for a while before the last couple of weeks, but now I've got a friend who's got a basement gym. He's got barbells and weights and everything. So I cycle there every morning, do an hour and a half workout, and then cycle back. So I'm back in the gym doing deadlifts, squats, the full works, not just body weight. But I'm a big fan of calisthenics as well. So let's have some questions as it pertains to particularly cold approach in London, and how you guys want to develop your skills over the next couple of months, and how you want to reintegrate yourself into social society, right? How you want to get back into this. The more questions about that, the better, because it's all fresh in my mind right now. And as I said, I've been approaching again, I've been teaching again, and I'm really, really optimistic now about London and about us making a good go of it over the next couple of years, and helping more men to become confident and accepting of the way that they are and what they need to do in order to improve themselves. So those are the questions we're looking for. How would you avoid getting irritated by a girl posting non-stop Instagram stories? She's an attractive Ukrainian I've been dating on and off, but the attention seeking feels like a red flag. Find the formula. Man, it's not your job to judge her by her Instagram stories. If you like the girl, if you like her and you don't mind her Instagram stories and you just let her do whatever she's doing, then that's great. Go for it. If it annoys you and that puts you off, then don't pursue her, right? It's not our job to police the behavior of others. It's our job to find the people that we get along with and not worry about anybody else. What's up? Shout out the AFI Kingdom podcast. We're going to collaborate soon, brother. Keep up the good work. Marco Rossi. How long do you recommend to wait before texting a girl after getting her number? I remember Tuss saying 1 to 2 hours, but it seems to me it would be better to wait 1 or 2 days to not look needy, just like you don't immediately reply to her text. What do you think? So when it comes to texting, it really depends on the interaction, right? Sometimes you're going to have an interaction, or you may have an interaction, or at least I have interactions where I might just introduce a storyline like, I promise I won't be needy with you, right? My last 2 ex-girlfriends were really needy. I promise I won't be needy with you. And then maybe you get her number at the end and you immediately send her a message and be like, so what's up? When are we going to go out, right? So that's a joke, right? So you can introduce storylines where texting is appropriate at virtually any time, right? During the interaction, after the interaction. But as a general rule, if you haven't, committed to a date, or if you haven't had any storyline about your future contact, like saying, I'm a really bad texter, so I'm sorry, but I'm not on my phone much, but I'll try my best with you, or something like that. If it's just a normal situation, I would just text the following day, like the following afternoon, or the morning of the day after that. So like 2 days later in the morning, or the following day, just because it feels natural, right? And I like messaging people in the morning because it's kind of fresh in your mind. You've just woken up, and people don't regularly receive messages in the morning. They normally get all their messages in the evening. So if you're communicating with someone in the morning, then you're likely to be one of the few people doing that. And so therefore you have a sort of platform, and there's a sense that you're going to be one of the only people talking to her at that time. So you're going to have her full attention, and it just breaks the pattern of waiting until work finishes and then sending all your messages. So yeah, I would do it either the following day or the morning after the following day. Lesbos. if you're doing it in a small town, I wouldn't spam approach. Honestly, I wouldn't spam approach anywhere, in the sense of just going out and talking to as many people as possible. Not because I think it's bad to talk to a lot of people, there's a problem with it, just because I think the mentality behind it means you're probably going to be relying on crutches and saying the same things, and you're going to be lacking creativity. I would think that the most important thing is to focus on the individuals that you're going to talk to, right? The most important thing is doing the approach, but as you're approaching, just focus on that one individual. Like, she's the only person you're going to approach, the only person you've ever approached. So you need to give the person you're speaking with everything. The skill of being in conversation with an individual and giving them everything, giving them your full attention, being completely undistracted, being completely there, is extremely powerful. And I think it's the best way to learn by far, is to give everything to each individual and not worry about the future or how many you're going to do, or just focus on one at a time. And however many you do, that's okay, as long as you're really focusing on each one. What are the pillars of attraction? Obviously, that's a very nuanced question. There's not necessarily pillars of attraction. I do believe that there's a couple of things that pertain to that question. For example, there is an element of luck. As I mentioned before, opposites don't attract, generally speaking, or in the most simple case. In most cases, similarities attract. So, for example, if you talk to a girl and you have similar interests and you have similar desires and you have a similar way of thinking, similar sense of humor, then that's a great benefit, and that's out of your control. That's down to pure luck. And then the other big thing is your perceived value, right? So that value could come from virtually anywhere, but it could be power, social power. It could be purely the raw confidence to go up and say hello when no one else has. It could be a certain inspiration or aspiration that you have, but the way that the other person perceives your potential and your value as an individual is the main pillar. And in order to build your value as a person, in order to improve the way that others perceive you and also the way that you perceive yourself, you must focus on the triangularity of essentially wealth, health, and love. Wealth meaning your financial situation and your potential to improve your finances, right? Your health in terms of your physical and mental health. So wealth, that would cover reading a lot of books and understanding a lot of topics. That will come under your potential to leverage power in the world. Your health meaning your mental and physical health. Are you active? Are you overweight? Are you underweight? Or are you someone that's disciplined and you go out and you grab the world, seize the day, exercise, go to the gym, eat as healthy as you can? And are you sort of keeping your mind active? Are you meditating? These are wealth and health. And then your love, meaning your connections with your family, friends, dating, relationships, everyone that matters in your life. Those are the three pillars of fulfillment, and therefore they are also the pillars of attraction. Because if you are improving yourself exponentially and working on the things that are important in your life, then you are increasing your value, and your value is that pillar that you're referring to, right? So you've got to build your value in terms of building attraction with any one individual. What do you suggest to those of us who feel rusty and don't want to just jump into cold approach yet, do as a warm-up? That's a good question, man. If you're feeling rusty, meaning you've had a long time out of the flow of things, and you want to get back into the momentum and the flow of cold approach, then the only way to do it is to go out and talk to people. And the reality of it is that it's going to be difficult at times. It's not easy, but it has to be done. So my recommendation, if you're feeling rusty, is commitment, right? If you have nothing to do the following day, you have no work, you have no meetings, you have no dates, you have nothing planned, you wake up in the morning and it's going to be very, very difficult for you to do anything productive with that day. However, if the day before you've committed to a number of things, you've committed to a friend that you're going to go out with him for 4 hours, explore London and go and talk to some people, you've committed that evening to maybe a girl you've met or something that you're going to go on a date, then you'll wake up the next morning, you'll have to snap into action because you know you've got commitments. You've given your word to people that you're going to do something. And so if you're feeling rusty, my recommendation is that knowing that humans take the path of least resistance. If we have the option, we take the easiest course of action. Knowing that, you've got to commit to actions the following days that are going to force you to take action, that are going to force you to wake up, that are going to force you to grab life by the balls or by the horns. I don't know what's a better analogy, really. They're both a little crass. But force your hand, force your own hand. Go before you're ready. Make a commitment that's going to be very difficult for you to follow through on, so that you have to follow through. It's going to be tough, but you've got to get it done, guys. That's how you do it if you're rusty. Force your own hand. Don't let yourself make that decision in the morning. Commit to it the day before. If you have approached people in Russia, Ukraine, or Belarus, what has been your experience? Belarus is the only one of those three that I've been to, and it was the people I met there, both male and female, were scarily clever, very, very intelligent, very knowledgeable, perfect English spoken, knowledge of the history of England and the world, just really intelligent, sweet, kind women that I met in Belarus. However, I think it's a great place to go if you're someone looking for a relationship or looking for a wife, right? Because the women there are kind of, in my experience, they're quite prepared for a relationship. And so I think a single guy, particularly if you're from England, looking for a relationship with a very, very kind, intelligent, beautiful woman, Belarus is an amazing place. But I don't think it's a very good place if you're a young guy just looking, or an older guy just looking to sort of have some fun in maybe one night stands. It's probably not the best place because the culture there isn't so much one of one night stands. It's more about real dating with something in mind. So I think probably Ukraine or Russia is better if you want to go and just have some fun. There's more to do in those places, but Belarus is a great place for beautiful, kind, attractive women to go on dates with, particularly if you're looking for a relationship. What happened to Dylan? Dylan is alive and well. He just needed to take some time to figure out what he was doing, because I think Dylan lacked a level of intent when he was talking, and he knew it, and I knew it. It was like he wasn't ready for it, or he didn't really want it. So I think Dylan's just taking some time to figure out where he's going and what he's up to, and I think that's a good thing. It doesn't mean you have to completely stop approaching at all, but I do think it's important to take some time for yourself and actually figure out your direction in life, like settle on something, focus on one thing, or if it's a business plan or a job that you want to do or a career that you want to pursue, just figure out the first steps of that and know the direction you're going in, because it's very difficult to have a clear intent and a clear confidence and sort of intensity and maturity when you don't know what you're up to and you're just sort of drifting through life without a direction. Quite right, Teddy. Right, guys, more about London, right? This isn't a normal Q&A. We want to focus on London right now, right? London is, I know if you're not from London, I know that's a bit tough, but really, London's what I know right now, right? I'm not familiar with other parts of the world because I haven't traveled for many months since Brazil. And so I'm in London, and London's amazing right now. So let's think about what we can do in London and how we can wake up London. So please go for those questions more than anything. Carl Anthony, if a woman joins my social circle but dates another bloke for a while, after they finish, she is friendly and flirty with me. Do I enjoy my turn, or is being second choice not a good idea? Don't worry about any of that, man. If you like her and you want to give it a go with her, and she wants to give it a go with you, I would have no issues about, who she's been with before or her past, unless that guy is also a part of your social circle and you don't want to destroy a load of connections. I've had experiences before where a girl has gone out with one of my friends and then tried to flirt with me or tried to be with me. And I sort of realized afterwards, this is when I was much younger, realized afterwards that it was just her way of getting some drama, right? Seeing if she had the power to break up a friendship, right? Seeing if she could leverage loyalty of men and destroy that and feel the sense that, she was in control of that and she had the power to do that. That's not a generalization about all women, but just be careful of that, because at the end of the day, women are attracted to guys who understand loyalty, who won't drop their friends at the drop of the hat for the next girl coming, but they've actually got a sense of loyalty and respect and dignity. So if it's just a guy from outside your social circle, don't worry about it, man. Go for it. Don't get rid of your ego. It's another thing that's unattractive. A woman just likes guys who are easygoing. She likes guys who aren't too concerned with, all of that stuff, like pride about, how many guys she's been with and jealousy and all of that. It's much better to just be relaxed at the start, even if she does end up looking for a relationship at the start. Girls aren't looking for a relationship with you when they first meet you. They're looking to have fun and get to know you. And so treat her the same way. Just get to know her and have fun. Don't worry about who she's been with before or anything like that. Sam, I think central London, particularly Oxford Street, is overrated, particularly on Saturday. Too frenetic and too many distractions. Your thoughts? No, I disagree. Normally, I would agree it's not the best place. Right now, I think it is the best place because it's not too hectic. It's not too frenetic. There's not a lot happening. There's just a few people going to shops. And I think it's a very good place to do it if you're not spam approaching or shotgun approaching, but if you're actually just focusing on talking to the people that you really like the look of and you really want to get to know. So it's a very good place. The route that I would take normally in London is essentially from Bond Street Station, Oxford Circus Station, Piccadilly Circus, Leicester Square, Covent Garden, Trafalgar Square, Embankment, cross to the South Bank from there, and then down towards Tower Bridge. That's about, if you're doing some approaching, that's about a 4-hour trip. And so that's a good afternoon. It's a really, really, really nice walk. It's always a bit of an adventure. So that's a good way to go. That's often where I'll take my clients if we're going out on a normal day. Right now, I've got a load of coaching lined up next week. Obviously, for anybody interested or curious about coaching, just get in contact with me at admin@fluid.social. But at the moment, we're going Bond Street, Hyde Park, St James Park, and sometimes the South Bank as well. But really, the parks are the places to go when we've got beautiful weather like this. What are some date ideas besides a drink at a pub, not just for a first date? So some date ideas now. Well, look, it's never been a better time to ask someone on a walk. I'm always a big fan on normal days of just asking a girl if she wants to go for a walk along the South Bank, have a glass of wine or something like that. I don't like framing a meeting. In fact, I don't ever frame a meeting with a girl as a date. I never say that word, right? I'm not like, let's go on a date sometime, because I don't like forcing a narrative around it. Even though normally the suggestion is that there's going to be some attraction or there's going to be some romance, I think there's a lot more freedom in a relationship when it starts on the premise of not having a frame, right? You're just meeting that person, you're just going out, you're hanging out together, and if romance happens, it happens, and if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. It normally will, but it will if you're not forcing it. That's something that I really learned in Brazil, because people don't do dates, they just hang out and then sometimes end up sleeping with each other often. So think about it like that. You're just meeting her, right? Just like you'd meet a friend, except you might be attracted to her, in which case you express your attraction. It doesn't have to be a date. You don't have to add this frame to it. Just treat it as a meeting with another individual who you're probably going to be attracted to. Date ideas: a walk along the river, bottle of wine. There's some great places, Borough Market. There's some bars open down there, and there's always some people around there. So you can go hang out, have a drink with someone there. King's Cross is always a cool place. I live near King's Cross, so that's where I will do most of my dates. For specifics, you can drop me a message and we'll talk about it. But yeah, I like obviously doing dates kind of close to my place because I know the area. It's easy for me to get to, and if she wants to come and see it because it's a really cool area, then everyone wins. And then obviously if we do really get on and we do want to take things further, then it's easy to do as well because it's close to your place, right? So it's easy for you to lead the interaction in that direction without sort of splashing around and booking Ubers and things like that. Best places to go out in London. Well, if you mean out at night, there's nowhere right now, man, except for Borough Market and a few places in Shoreditch with bars open, but it's not great at night. I would just go out in the day and then do dates in the evening or hang out with friends and invite some girls around as well and do social circle stuff. Hi, Sam. What advice would you give? I go out and walk for 1 hour trying to approach, but don't. How do you overcome this? Mike Ashton. Mike, if you're struggling with that, I would recommend going out with someone with whom it's easy to keep a good energy, right? A lot of guys I meet, they're looking for the community, the pick-up community. I wouldn't recommend that unless you just want to kind of put the feelers out and see what's right and who else is into it. I would recommend going out with a friend, someone who you can have a laugh with, have a joke with, someone probably who's more extra on the extroverted side than on the introverted side, because they will stop you from falling into your thoughts and falling into your own head and getting lost in thought. If you go out with someone who you have a cool energy with, it's easy for you to just be chatting, having a little talk about anything, and then just hop off when you see a beautiful girl, motivate them to do the same thing. So if you're going out by yourself and you're really struggling, don't go out by yourself. Go out with someone else. I'm here, brother. Just drop me a message. Or if you've got some friends to go out with, then go out with them. You've got many options. And if you don't have anyone to go out with or you want to go out alone, then I highly recommend focusing on the lived experience of going out. Because we talked about it last session, but it's so important, and it's so important. I'm just going to repeat it and repeat it and repeat it. If you are getting lost in thoughts, it is impossible to go and approach someone. If you are not approaching and you're scared to approach, it's because you are getting lost in thoughts. You are creating up narratives about why the interaction is going to go wrong. So they feed into each other, not approaching and being lost in thoughts. If you try to take your attention away from thoughts, you are thinking about not thinking, and that is still thinking. There is no way to take your attention away from thoughts. There are only ways to redirect your attention onto something else. Right, so now the question is, outside of thoughts, what is there that we can focus our attention on? Thoughts being ideas and stories and things that exist in consciousness, on the sort of projection of consciousness. The only thing outside of that, outside of thought, is reality. Are your senses, what you see, what you hear, what you feel, what you taste, what you sense. That is the only thing. So if you are scared to approach, it is because you are lost in thoughts. If you are lost in thoughts, you must redirect your attention onto the lived experience, your physical reality. The way to do that is meditation. Whether that means you sit down for 10 minutes, you shut your eyes or leave your eyes open, follow your breath coming in and out, focus on the things around you, or as you're walking, you're doing the same thing. You're looking at the buildings, you're looking at the trees, you're feeling the wind against your face. That is the way to get yourself out of thought. And then as it follows, when you see a woman that you want to approach, you focus on her. What's she wearing? Is she glowing? What's her skin color like? What do you think she might do for a job, right? What information are you translating from the data in front of you? What are you learning about her just from looking at her? That's going to give you a conversation topic to talk about. It's going to give you an opening line that's going to be good, and it's going to stop you from getting lost in catastrophizing thoughts, in thoughts of the worst case scenario, which are the ones that our mind immediately bounce to when we're lost in thought. You're not thinking about how well it's going to go, right? You're not looking at a girl and imagining the best case scenario, because your biological systems are preparing you for death. That's the simple reality. And so they catastrophize as a defense mechanism, but that defense mechanism is not necessary all the time. So it's on autopilot, and it is within your control to take control of the wheel and drive the ship in the right direction, and not let the autopilot carry you to safety, but drive into the storm, drive against the current. And that's what you've got to do. You've got to redirect your attention. What's your typical first date structure, Sam? I don't have a structure, but I will just meet up with someone, and normally I like to involve movement. So I don't just like to sit down in one place for an extended period of time, because the brain goes flat. Everything goes still when you're still. Conversation goes still. And so I like to walk around. I like to go to a couple of different places. And I think the more important question there, rather than first date structure, is what are the important things to remember when you are going on dates? What is it important to do that you might easily forget? And one of them, something that's very easy that, even recently I've experienced just forgetting about, is to include physical contact. So if you're meeting with someone on a date, right, it's very easy to let that date pass by, have a great conversations, or get into it and focus on them. And then it comes to the time when maybe you're thinking about going home, and you sort of realize that you haven't really made any moves, right? You haven't, touched them. You haven't held their hand. You haven't even put a hand on their shoulder in a friendly way. You haven't established any physical contact. And the idea in your mind and in her mind of leaping from a very physically distant relationship and meeting experience to suddenly going home together is bizarre. It's very strange. So there has to be some point in the interaction where you're thinking, right, how am I going to make this a physical reaction, a physical interaction, right? How am I going to orchestrate this meeting so that there's some level of touch involved? Because it's all an escalation. And if you, for example, are making a joke and you just touch her on the shoulder, very naturally, just a gentle touch, then she's going to be more comfortable with you touching her hand, right? Touching her elbow, touching somewhere else. And then once you've done that, maybe it's more appropriate to touch her waist or touch her hip or something like that. And it's a slow escalation. And only then will it be natural, if the time comes for you to even suggest going back together, right? Going home together or kissing her. It has to come from somewhere. It doesn't just come out of the blue. So one thing to remember is that if you like the girl, she doesn't really feel that you like her unless you build some sort of physical connection. So just remember to start that process as early as possible. When you meet her, maybe give her a kiss on the cheek, or at least, hold her hand or shake her hand or something like that when the time is right. Not in the first few seconds of the interaction, but on the date, certainly get the physical process started early, because it's very difficult to start it if you leave it too late. You start becoming very comfortable in a non-physical flow, and that can be very difficult to reverse. It's the same with friends. If you make a new friend and you never shake his hand or you never give him a hug or express a physical relationship, 5 years down the line, it's going to be awkward to give him a hug, right? When you know that person really well. So physicality is something that you've got to start early. You've got to show yourself and create in yourself a sense that you are a physical person, right? You can get away with anything if people know that your intention is good, right? Some people are very touchy. And another thing about South Americans is they're extremely touchy. They'll put an arm around you, slap you on the back. They'll shake your hand a lot, fist bump. Very, very physical. And even people who are a little bit uncomfortable with physical contact, they're not offended by it because they know that that person's not being creepy or trying to be weird. They're just naturally physical. So if you show yourself early on to be a physical being, then people will be comfortable with your physicality and they won't find that strange. So in London, at the moment, that's truer than ever. Everyone's had a bit of a physical contact drought. And so everyone's going to be a little more rusty and a little more complacent about it. So you've got to establish that early. You meet someone, make the interaction physical if you like that person. Because if it's not physical, then it's going to be difficult to make physical. Will you always go for an instant date? No, I won't. Sometimes, I mean, if it seems a possibility to go for one, so you have a free afternoon, you're enjoying the interaction, she's enjoying the interaction, then I see very little reason not to continue. I wouldn't even call it an instant date, just continue the interaction, right? It's not an instant date, it's just you're talking to her and then you walk somewhere with her, right? It's just continuing the momentum of the initial conversation. Unless there's a reason not to, I would go for it, because you don't lose points if she can't for whatever reason or doesn't want to. It just shows that you've expressed what you wanted to do, right? So there's no risk to trying it. It seems a little stressful sometimes. We kind of want to get out of there as soon as possible. But no, I don't always do that. Most of the time I don't have a free afternoon afterwards, or I'm with a client, or if there's something going on that won't allow it. But if there's nothing going on, then I'll go for it, yeah. And it's a very good habit to get into. Otherwise, you can start to get into the habit of just number collecting, and then, focusing on texting, and then really you can sort of end up putting up a facade, right? You think, I just need to be switched on for these 5 minutes, right? Show her the best side of me, and then I just need to get my texting right. But then when it comes to actually meeting that person, you feel like you've got to live up to this 5-minute wonder that you gave her in the interaction. That's not a good way to think about it. It's much more productive to in some way show the lazy side of you as well, like be in a long interaction where she gets to see the highs and more lulls in conversation as well, and she starts to become comfortable with you personally, so neither of you feel like there's some sort of hype to live up to or expectation. You're just natural and comfortable around each other. Awkwardness generally tends to bond you to someone if you can overcome the awkwardness, because they see a little bit of what you're like when you're more vulnerable, and you see what they're like. So yeah, I would try and keep it as real as you can, not think about it as an instant date. Just take the next step, right? Sometimes you don't really know what you're up to. You just walk in a direction, hope you'll find something. Just flow with it, man. No one's asking you to be perfect. No one's asking you to get everything right. She certainly doesn't expect that. So just figure it out as you go along, concentrate, and yeah, go for it. Tommy, not been central London in almost 3 months. What is the foot traffic? As I said, man, I mean, I went out for the first time properly on Saturday, as in a proper day out, and it was epic. I mean, look, there's some level of projection. If you are approaching, you see more opportunities. If you're not approaching, you see fewer opportunities, and you generally tend to see people as less attractive than they are. Once you are in the flow of approaching, you are much more open to beauty. You're much more perceptive of beauty. You're not necessarily looking for the negatives, thinking, oh, her nose is too big, right? She's not my type. You're much more open to what is attractive about her, because you're feeling confident, you're feeling open. So there's a level of projection, but my experience, as I said over the weekend, was absolutely no worse than any other weekend in London. I didn't see anything in Leicester Square, Piccadilly, and Covent Garden. So I would avoid that area. I would stick to the parks most of all, and then Bond Street to Oxford Circus is always good. But please don't shotgun approach there, because otherwise it's just going to get messy. If you're approaching loads of people and they're all getting approached, I think, yeah, as I said, we've got to be sensible. We've got to give what we're doing a good name and not a bad name. So I don't think you should go in with the attitude of, let me just fuck around and get it wrong as many times as I like and say stupid shit. Don't do that in the streets, because women are just going to get a negative perception, and it's going to mess it up for the next guy. And I think it's not going to do anything for the gender relations, particularly if there are more sensitive women in England than perhaps Russia and Ukraine and Belarus, the places that we've mentioned. just try and be understanding, right? Try and be, as respectful as you can. The parks, there's a bit more free reign. People are chilling out. They're with their friends. So you can be a little bit more, a little bit more frivolous in the parks. In the streets, I don't recommend it. I think you're only messing it up for your future self. When you start getting good opportunities in the future, you might come across girls that have had their, weird shit happen to them before, a load of guys just spam approaching, and so they don't take you seriously. Let's get it right, guys. We've all got to support each other here. Every man's actions reflects on every other man's actions in this department. London's a big city, but it's not that big, and there's enough people to mess it up or to make it good. So let's make it good. Is it pointless for a guy to approach women in London if he is still living at home? No, it's never pointless. It's an opportunity to overcome an obstacle. I know the feeling, though. If you're living at home and you have terrible logistics, it creates a very easy excuse not to take action. Well, there's nowhere I can go with her. She won't want a guy that lives with his parents, and there's nowhere I could take her anyway, so I might as well just not approach. But what you're forgetting is that you're not always going to be living at home. And your home isn't the only place you can go. Some people might want to have fun in the parks, right? I'm serious about that. Like, there are many, many opportunities. Women are like men, and we're more similar to women than we are different. And one thing that we share in common with women is an excitement for the adventure. We want new experiences and different experiences. So if you're feeling good, you're confident, you're with a girl that you like, and you see a good opportunity in nature to get cracking, and you live at home and you want to try something new, and she wants to as well, and it seems a bit risky and fun, then go for it, man. There's no limit on what you can do if you're doing it from a genuine place. And so if you're living at home, you're not always going to be living at home. Go for it anyway, and maybe you'll move out of home, or maybe you can go with her back to her place, or maybe she doesn't care, right? It's no excuse. You just got to keep the momentum up, and you feel good. It's not just about the sex and the dates. It's about you. It's about you improving yourself. It's about the feeling that we all know when you're taking difficult actions towards bettering yourself. It's about knowing how much goodness it brings you, like how much joy it brings you, how much energy it brings you. That is the greatest call to action. Is the very act itself is good for you. And that's what you've got to remember, so that don't let any easy excuse get in your way. Like, I'm living with my parents, or my logistics are bad. Just go for it. You'll figure it out, man. Trust me. You'll figure out the obstacles. You just have to take that first step and get your foot in the door. Tommy, as I've said, central London, foot traffic is Bond Street to Oxford Circus and the parks, very good. Avoid Covent Garden, Piccadilly and Leicester Square. Generally speaking, there's not much going on there. London Bridge, Tower Bridge is good, but again, no spam approaching around there. It's a lot more people coming out of work, in their little social circles, or having a quiet drink. We want to give London a good reputation, so don't spam approach around London Bridge or Tower Bridge. It's not the place for it. If you want to do a bit more of, bulk approaching, then I recommend going to the parks. When it comes to the night, does size matter to all the women you meet? Jack Pastor. Fine question, man. No, not important. Not important, man. Not important to her if it's not important to you, right? It's kind of like, it's really hard to make a parallel, but don't worry about it. Your sounds cliched. Your personality is way, 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 way more important than the size of your equipment. There is, if a woman's on holiday in Ibiza or something, and she's out with her friends, and they're all very sexually open, the holiday mode. Sometimes that will matter to them in the sense of, like, they want to have. It's exciting to them, right? In the same way that a stripper or a glamour model is exciting to a guy, but it's not important in the grand scheme of things. Like, if she's considering guys that she really wants to spend time around and she finds them attractive, that's, in my experience, talking to women about it, that's not important at all. So don't worry about it. Not looking forward to wearing that stupid mask though, especially in the heat. Dude, I feel you, Lesbos One. I feel you, man. I hate these masks, man. I'm not using public transport. I'm Santander biking around. I'm not using the tube or the buses. I hate wearing a mask. It feels weird. I don't like it at all. I'm not convinced it's doing anything. So you got to follow the rules if you're going on public transport. But I'm not up for wearing a mask either, mate. Yeah, Andy. Yeah, I mean, I think I answered that question. You figure out another solution, right? You're more resourceful than you think. And once you get into the approaching, and you've actually done the approaches, you will figure out how to escalate it from there, because you will have to. Again, you forced your own hand. You put yourself in the spotlight. You put yourself in a position where you have to figure it out, and so you will figure it out. You've got to force your own hand, otherwise we'll be lazy. So commit to something. Commit. You're with the girl, you're in the interaction, you've got to figure out the next step. So you will figure out the next step because you forced your own hand. Rory, people will be far more receptive to meeting at the moment due to the prolonged isolation, which has made people craving attention and hopefully a connection as well. Correct. That's what I've observed, mate, over the last 2 days. People are craving attention and affection and communication and all of that. So yeah, spot on. It's a good time to do it. You can't blame people living at home in London as rent is so expensive and people are saving up so they can have a future with some economic capital. Yeah, you can't blame people for anything. It's not about blaming them. But yeah, obviously, ideally, you're not living with your parents if you're dating. The simple fact is it's better not to be. It's easier logistically. It's in most cases more attractive to her. But if that's where you are, then that's what you work with and you figure out a way around it. You use your resources, the same resources that are going to get you out of the house, that are going to get you from living with your parents to living by yourself or living with friends. Those same psychological, mental resources and powers that you have are the same ones that are going to help you figure out a solution to the date and what to do with the girl as they are to get you out of the house. So you've just got to force your own hand. You've got to get your head down and just motivate yourself to figure out a solution, right? It's all about problem solving. Everything worthwhile in life is about finding an obstacle and figuring out a way to overcome it. And once you figured that out, a new obstacle comes and you're prepared to deal with it and you figure it out. And that is, we're doing the old myth of Narcissus. We're rolling our boulder up the hill, watching it roll down again and rolling it up again. But we can enjoy that process. We can enjoy just keeping on overcoming obstacles and growing and getting better and better and influencing another generation of people where we can and improving our little corner of the world, man. That's the way you've got to think about it. Nathan St. Fleur, what do you think about Tay Social? Well, he's got a shout out now, so cool. I don't know anything about him, don't know the name. Do you think it's better to approach direct or indirect? I don't think it's good to consider those two ideas of indirect or direct. I think it's good to consider that every approach is situational, meaning as long as you're taking into account the true context of the situation, how are you going to approach someone in the park? Are you going to crouch down beside them? Are you going to stand and leer over the top of them? Are you going to come from behind? What are you going to do? It's good to think about each approach as purely situational. It doesn't need to be labeled direct or indirect. Just like approaching women in the day doesn't need to be labeled day game. And just like anyone that says hello to an attractive female in the day doesn't need to be labeled a pickup artist. We don't need this sort of boys club language around it. So just think of each approach as, let me analyze the data in front of me and let me select the most intelligent thing to say at the time. And in the way language forms reality. If you are using language that is exclusive, like a direct opener, an indirect opener, when I'm day gaming with my wingman, you are creating a reality that is alienating to women. You're creating a reality that you cannot talk to them about, right? Why do you think they would be more attracted to a guy who can't talk about his life and what he's doing? They want you to be able to be honest with them and not worry that they're going to judge you or worry that there's going to be some creepy, weird vibe. So in my experience, as much as you can, avoid all of the language in the industry as you can, and just the group mentality, and just see yourself as an individual human male attracted to human females and going out and saying the most intelligent thing you can say to them in the moment. How do I increase my value in a certain place? It depends what place. How can I approach a social group? If you see a group of people, particularly in the parks now, I approached a group of like 8 or 9 girls the other day for one of them. And I just went straight up to the girl that I liked and said, "You're beautiful." And then just focused on her, right? And then the group, her sister was there and she was like, "This is my little sister. I'm very protective over her, blah, blah, blah." And so I was like, "That's nice." Yeah. And I told her, "You're lucky you've got a protective older sister. That's really nice." So focus on the individual, focus on the girl you like, demonstrate your social intelligence to the group, but don't get distracted by the group. A really easy mistake to make or waste of a potentially good situation is to be talking to a group of women and get distracted by ingratiating yourself to the friends, right? Trying to make yourself likable to the friends and spend all that time just talking to them. And the girls just sort of like, "Oh, right, so you're not interested in me." It's much more attractive to everyone if you are direct about your intent, right? So if you like the girl, talk to the girl, right? Her friends are still there. So show that you're a cool guy, that you're socially intelligent. Don't ignore them, but focus on what you came for and not just like getting into the group, because you'll just end up being friend zoned and be the sort of circus act, the sort of, oh, a bit of light entertainment, but no real minerals to him. So yeah, just focus on the girl, right? Don't worry about the group. Just say hi to them, acknowledge them, but focus on the girl that you like. Do looks matter? I mean, it's such an open question that it could only have an open answer, which is yes, right? Of course, looks matter. If I go out wearing dirty jeans with my hair all cover my face and spots everywhere, horribly overweight, then I've got way fewer chance than if I've done myself up, right? If I'm working out, if I'm healthy, if I've got a bit of color, if I'm well groomed. Looks matter in as far as you can control them, but they matter in that they represent certain qualities about you, right? Yes, good-looking people who are genetically better looking have certain advantages with women over people who are genetically not so conventionally attractive. But the greater part of it, and certainly the only part that you should be thinking about, is what's in your control, which is the way you groom yourself, the way you present yourself, and what that says about who you are and the way that you think about yourself. So looks matter only to the extent that you can control them. What you cannot control does not matter, because you cannot change it, and therefore it cannot matter to you. It is an utterly pointless to pursue, to complain that it's harder for you because you know, or it's easy for him because he's good looking. So it's impossible for me because I'm ugly. It's like, well, what is the point, right? Don't think about what's right or wrong. Don't think about what, like, yeah, but it's the truth. I'm not good looking, but you can't control that. So there's absolutely no point in thinking about it. The serenity prayer. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference between them. If you stick to that mantra, you will never have to worry about any of these kind of pointless questions that don't lead anywhere. But yes, and as far as you can control the way that you appear, it matters. How long did it take you to get advanced at game? I don't consider myself advanced at game. I just consider myself to be someone who is not particularly afraid of approaching someone that I like the look of, and having learned more about social skills and human behavior and what I can get away with, and you know, how my identity isn't necessarily the way other people perceive me. There's lessons you learn, but it's just communication. I don't consider myself advanced at game, and there's certainly no point at which a switch flicked and suddenly you upgrade into a new body. You can have epiphanies along the way, but they're life epiphanies as it relates to social skills. They're not like it's not like an upgrade Pokemon of evolution. How can I pull a girl in her home? Because in my home it's a no-no. just talk to her about it, man. Ask her where she lives and who she lives with, and find out information, and then just ask her, man. A lot of the time, all these questions, we don't need to meander. We don't need to pretend that we're going to another bar and then end up, outside someone's house. A lot of the time, you can be really open about this stuff. You can just say, like, I want to go home with you. Do you want to go home with me? And it works, right? It's like we think that we need to dress everything up and falsify things, but the power of being honest and open about what you want to do and how you feel is so unusual that it's way more attractive than like a really intelligently thought out sneaking behind the back route way to make something happen, to go home with someone. How old are you? 26, almost 27 though, right? So thanks for the answers. You're welcome, bro. I'm glad I could be of help. Rory, do you ever think the mainstream media will ever understand and approve men going out and approaching women to improve their confidence, or do you think they will continue to have a lack of nuance? Good question, Rory. I love it. I love it. I think that not necessarily just the mainstream media, but there will always be a backlash against, not always, it's a very difficult one to answer. Certainly, let's talk about at the moment. The mainstream media right now in this current climate, and if this current climate continues, there will always be a backlash against men approaching women because, right, this is the important caveat, because there are enough men doing it genuinely badly, right? Not just, getting it wrong once, right, and sort of like getting a bit awkward or embarrassed, but I mean scaring women, right, like creeping them out and scaring them. So there's enough men doing that, and there's enough women that have had real trauma. I mean, horribly abusive upbringings. It's a lot more common than we think. And when you have a marriage of a girl or a woman who's been raped or genuinely sexually assaulted, and had extreme trauma, and she comes in the path of a guy who, to all intents and purposes, seems to be extremely suspect, extremely strange and threatening, then that woman is likely to react in an extreme. She's likely to have a stress reaction, right? And if she is in touch with journalists, or if she subscribes to the mainstream media in its forms, then she might get an article written about it or share her experiences with other women, and then that will spiral, and then the next guy they see approaching someone, they'll assume that he fits into the same cookie cutter mold as the last guy. It's not about blaming women or blaming individuals. It's just enough. There's enough shit going on in the world that when something like that happens, when a girl just has a bad reaction based on past trauma, it's easy for the media to pick up on it. It's so divisive that it's very easy for them to get clicks and make a story out of it and virtue signal and make it seem like everyone trying to be more social is an evil bastard. And that's not the truth, as you know it, as you and I know. So I don't think it's important that the mainstream media understands it. I don't think it's important to focus on what the mainstream media thinks. Every time I focused on what they think and stopped releasing videos or, got worried about it, each time nothing in reality had changed. It was just me projecting, me getting wrapped up in the stories, right? And we all do that. But the more we can focus on the reality, focus on your lived experience. Don't ask the news to tell you what the world is like. Go out into the world and experience it for yourself. The news is a story. It's someone's opinion about the world. It doesn't have to be your opinion. So don't worry about the mainstream media. Do what you need to do from a good place, from a place of dignity, right? From a place of knowing that whatever happens, your intention is to improve your patch of the world, be that your own confidence and your ability to impart wisdom and confidence onto others, or to improve the girl's day, to improve your corner of the world. If you're doing it from that place and the mainstream media hate you for it, then you've got an enemy because you've spoken up and you've done the right thing. So don't worry about it, man. Keep doing what you do. Right, I'm going to answer a couple more questions. Do you have a favourite aftershave? Where is she? I've got Issey Miyake. I think it's called Issey Miyake Noir or Night or something. It's in a black bottle. I like it. So if a guy does something to improve his looks, hair surgery, chin implant, is that bad if it improves our beauty? What are your thoughts on artificial beauty? Cool. Good question, man. I know from having close girlfriends and having a sister how the human mind works, and even male friends as well. You know, it starts with shaving your chest, right? It starts with wanting a clean chest and shaving your chest, and then, you know, getting your teeth whitened, right? These seem to be sort of arbitrary improvements. Then they're reversible. They're not fundamentally changing anything. Maybe a hair transplant, right? Maybe you get face filler, collagen, just to get rid of the little wrinkles, the little lines in the forehead, right? Then you think, right, fuck my teeth, actually. They're still a little bit orange. I'm just going to get implanted teeth, right? Right, then I've got a lazy eye. Shit, so I'm going to need eye surgery, right? Or maybe I just take the eye out and get a glass eye, right? And now my body's not growing fast enough, so I take some steroids, right? Take some steroids, take some extra testosterone, so I'm worried that my testosterone's right. And then, yeah, look, my chin's not as big as it could be, right? So I'll get a chin implant, shove a load of Botox in here, right? It's addictive like anything else. My best advice to you is improve your beauty naturally, improve your appearance naturally. And anything that you think, if you think you've got a weak chin, own your weak chin. If you think you've got too many wrinkles, own your wrinkles. Find examples of people who are confident with what you've got, who are making the best of life with what you consider to be your downfalls or your insecurities, because that's where the power's at. The power is at accepting what you've got, accepting your hand at the poker table, and working with it and playing with it and doing the best you can. Don't get caught up in the loop of constantly improving your beauty, because it's a very, very slippery slope, man. Very, very slippery slope. It's emasculating to worry about that. I used to worry about rings under my eyes. I used to have rings under my eyes. I probably still do. I just don't care. I used to put concealer on them. Dude, I used to be worried about everything, and it doesn't pay off for anyone. It's an absolute disaster. So I don't recommend plastic surgery. I don't recommend getting caught in some obsession with being more attractive. Just do the little things you can and focus on the hand you've got. When did you start gaming? I'm interpreting that as when did I first approach a girl in the daytime? Second year of Nottingham University, 2013, 7 years ago, and I remember it. And then I went out for a couple of years pretty consistently and worked on it and started coaching people with Asperger's syndrome and autism on how to make friends and how to build social networks. And I became a sort of stand-in behavioral therapist and peer mentor, social skills coach. And then that's where everything came from. What makes a great storyteller? That's a good question. It's a very long question to answer, though. But the basic things about storytelling is set the scene. The first thing is to set the scene, right? So you don't just say, so I was at, it was 4 o'clock and I was at the hotel, and then it's like, so it was 4 o'clock in the afternoon, sun was shining through the trees, I felt a cool breeze on the back of my neck, and then I heard a voice whispering from behind me, right? That's, you're setting the scene. You're giving that person something to picture, some image to project in their mind. So the most important thing about a story is you've got to remember that the person you're speaking to doesn't see what you see. They don't see the same story that you see. So you've got to make as clear a visual image in their mind, something for them to get into and to view in the sort of movie screen of their mind, rather than just getting into the proto-masculine, rational, information-giving story of what happened to whom. It's about where, when, how did it feel, right? So that's the most fundamental about stories. Joe3 says, I don't want the mainstream media to embrace this, because then it would just burn out the game for everybody. It's better that way, like a secret brotherhood, I don't know. Dude, I understand what you mean, and I know in theory that makes sense, but the reality is that you've got to have the abundance mindset as it relates to everything. You've got to understand that you're going to be all right no matter what happens, right? It's like, I could release this Q&A, right? I could do this video, and then I could look on someone else's channel tomorrow and find that they've said exactly what I've said. They've just copied me word for word in their own content. And I could either be annoyed about that, right, and say that they've done it, or I could just understand that I've done it better, right, because it came from the moment. It came from me, right? And any mimicry, any copycat effort of what I've done is not going to live up to the original. So I wouldn't worry about that. I wouldn't worry about other people talking to women as well. Sally, my sister's here. What up, Sal? That's hilarious. Sally, have you got any questions? Please feel free to ask them. I don't, yeah. So they don't want men taking control of their dating life. Who doesn't, Lesbos one? Who doesn't want men taking control of their dating life? Farhan. I once approached a girl in a shop and she was very receptive and giggly, but at the end of our interaction, she told it was weird to be pick up. I don't understand, Farhan. At the end of the interaction, she said it felt weird and you were in a shop. I mean, look, sometimes people just feel under pressure. So again, the thing to go back to is to remember that it's all situational, right? You've got to take into account the specifics of her situation. Is she looking at fruit and veg? What's she doing in the shop, right? Focus on all of the data, all of the information that you can use to influence the way you're going to go and talk to her. Don't just jump into it and just go and say, like, approach her from behind and start giving her compliments, right? It's just not going to work. Have you noticed the way Les always refers to women in the singular woman? I think he has trouble saying women. Yeah, man, he does do that, doesn't he? Yeah, I have noticed that. I laugh at him for it. How to build a social circle when you are introverted and don't know how to behave in a group. Yeah, that's a tough one, man. That's a tough question. Look, if you're introverted and you're in your group, there's an answer to that question. You know, even I sometimes, if I'm in a group of people that I don't really know and they've got their own, I suppose, thread of conversation and banter, their own developed sense of humor, because groups of people develop their own way of communicating and their own sense of humor. So if you are in a group that you don't know, the best thing you can do is not just try and speak, right? A lot of people try and establish themselves and they like interrupt and talk over people to try and mark themselves in the group, to try and put their stake in the ground. And that's a real mistake. In my experience, whenever I've had anxiety in a group of people, I felt introverted. I felt like people are judging me. I felt like awkward, right? The best thing you can do is, it all comes back to presence again, but the best thing you can do is just focus on what they're talking about, right? Someone might be telling a story. Someone might be making a movie reference. Someone might be laughing at another person in the group. But it's your job to understand, it's to catch up with them, it's to get into their conversational flow without saying anything. One projection that we have is that if we're silent in a group of people, we assume that people see us as the nervous one, or they see us as the introvert, or the person that's not talking. But actually, a lot of people really like that, and they find that that person's an easy person to turn to, right? I used to have it a lot with pre-drinks, right, at university before I really started focusing on socializing and improving my social life. I would have it in group pre-drinks at university where everyone would be sat around drinking and I didn't really have a lot to say. So I got worried about it. And what I realized is when everyone actually ended up going out and heading to the clubs, a lot of them would then come to me at the end because I hadn't said anything. I just looked like I was just listening and enjoying the conversation. And I found that people actually take a lot of comfort in the people that don't speak up because they feel like that person's just receiving them as they are, just receiving what they have to say and not feeling like they have to mark their place in the ground. Think about any social group you've got where there's one person who doesn't speak a lot, they just sort of laugh along and chill out in the conversation and relax. Most people tend to find that person extremely reliable and trustworthy because they don't have this egoic sense that they need to tread their mark on the conversation. They're not winding anyone up, right? They're not overbearing in any way. So if you don't know what to say, don't say anything. Just listen and try and enjoy it. Try and get into the flow of the conversation. Enjoy what they're talking about. And don't worry about speaking. If you have something to say, you'll say it. If you've been silent up until a point you have something to offer, everyone's going to listen to what you have to say. And when you do speak, people are going to take it seriously. So the loudest one in the room is not always the most confident, nor do they appear to be. The person that gets the most respect is the person that speaks when they have something to say, when it feels natural, and they don't have to speak all the time. They're perfectly happy in comfortable silence. And that's the same when you're one-on-one. If you're on a date, or if you're one-on-one with another person or a girl, like showing that you are relaxed and calm in silence means that that person never needs to feel awkward with you. They always know, like, oh, this guy's relaxed, right? We can just walk in silence and he's cool with it. So become comfortable by taking the pressure off yourself and just focusing on other people. How are they feeling? What are they talking about? Sally chiming in. He is nice. Thanks, Sal. I wish this stuff was more widely broadcast in the media and framed in a positive light for building self-esteem and having a positive self-image. See? Quite right. Quite right, Sally. Right, guys. I mean, this is an hour and a half in, and it wasn't so much London focused as I'd hoped, but thank you for all of your questions. And as I said, so I'm going to be coaching next week and the week after. London's back to normal. Anybody needs any tips or any help, or a push in the day, some help actually getting back into the swing of things, you know where to find me. And as I said, I'm going to be releasing more and more content for you guys, because I know it's difficult for a lot of you to actually get one-on-one time with me and come out in the daytime. So I'm writing a book for beginners. I'm creating a system that essentially takes you from total beginner to relationship, because I think ultimately you don't have to go to that final step of looking for a relationship if you really don't want to. But I think ultimately that's how we should look at this, right? You go from being a single guy without the ability to talk to people to being in a strong and healthy, powerful relationship, however you want to frame that relationship. It doesn't have to be monogamous. It doesn't have to be, you're consenting adults. You can do whatever you like. But I'm creating a system for doing this. And I'm excited about it. And I hope that this is going to be very helpful for you guys as well. We want more Sally. Right. We're going to have to do a brother-sister video at some point, I think, aren't we? All right, well, let's arrange that. I'll head back to Bath one of these days and we'll get Sally on the channel. Shout out to my sister Sally. When does the book come out? Hopefully by December, mate. Let's see how things progress. But I'll be giving you little teasers before then. I'll be giving you a bit of a flavor of what's to come. You're welcome, Lesbos. It's very important for a man to travel, Rory Flower. Get out there, go and see the world, go and enjoy yourself, go on adventures. You learn more. You have more trauma and more chaos and more of a learning experience traveling than doing virtually anything else. So if you get the opportunity to travel to another country, do it. Even if you're breaking the bank, you'll figure it out, man. Force your own hand, take the difficult decision. It's been a pleasure, guys. Always a pleasure. We'll talk to you soon. We'll do one of these within the next week and a half. Big yourselves up. Big yourselves up. Much love. Bye. Ciao. See ya.